Hey mamas, hello, hello. Welcome to a new series all about inspiring your teens to love learning. So let's start with a simple question today. Are your teens inspired to learn? Do your teens love to learn? Let me know down below with a simple yes or no, or maybe there's something in particular that your teens love to learn, because that's what we're talking about first. That's where we're starting, is this idea of a passion, of an interest. Like, what does your teen actually care about? Like, what does your teen even want to learn about? All of those things go into inspiration, and that's why we're starting with this particular topic. Now, before we dive into how to help your teen find that thing that he actually wants to learn about, do you know there's an awesome freebie waiting for you on my website? It's called the Homework Buster. It's 5 tips to bust through your teen's homework objections. And I want to make sure that you go to that link in my bio, and it's actually here in the description of the video too, and get that after the video. Okay? Now, if you told me your kiddo is not inspired to learn, your teen does not like learning, I'm not surprised. That's exactly why I'm a study skills tutor, exactly why I do what I do with my Love to Learn Study Skills program. And the sad truth of it is, and we'll talk about this more this week, and if you're, a subscriber, a follower, a member of my group, all these things, and you've heard me say this before, but do know teens who don't know how to learn don't love to learn, because how can you love to learn when you don't know how? So your teen that doesn't seem to care about learning, doesn't seem inspired, just thinks it's boring, a waste of time. Why do I have to go to school? Why do I have to do this assignment? Well, there's probably skills missing. Okay. Now we can definitely start with the how, these skills, but I got to tell you, you're not going to get much buy-in from your teen. So that's kind of point number 1 here. And we have to discover your teen's passions, your teen's interests, to get them inspired to learn, because that interest is the start of everything. It provides motivation to learn. Okay. Now, this interest could be anything. It can be a class, it can be a topic, it can be really, really broad. Like, I love cats, I love horses, I love Egyptian history. But I can also tell you it can be really, really narrow. Okay. It could be like a certain emperor, like in a homeschool group I'm a part of on Facebook. I just saw something where mama's asking about Napoleon. I've had other things, like a specific breed of horse. Like, I love Clydesdales. It could be really narrow, really broad. But the point here is your teen needs to have an interest to even want to learn, to even get that motivation to learn going. Okay. Now, there's a lot of reasons that we want your teens to get inspired to learn, a lot of reasons to get this interest going. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But do know the idea here is it's a snowball effect. Okay. Once your teen loves to learn this thing, finds this thing interesting, ooh, how can we make this other thing, this other topic, just as interesting as this thing you already care about? Or something like, okay, why do you like this thing so much? Well, you understand it. It's easy. I find it interesting. Okay, well, can we see if there's a way to feel that same way about this other thing that's directly related, like a different breed of horse, right? Or a different aspect of history, a different emperor, different general, all those things. Or, is there just a way to learn it the way we learned that? Okay. So definitely do know we got to have a point of interest to start, get the motivation rolling, and use that as inspiration to learn other things related or really, really different, but somehow still connected. And we'll talk about how to do that. Now, I want to say this because this is like one of the most important things I can say in this whole video, and something I'm really, really passionate about as a study skills tutor. And this is the goal of learning. The goal of teaching your teens how to learn is to help them love to learn for the sake of learning. Okay, we want your teens to love to learn just because they love to learn anything. Okay, so I have to start somewhere. Some are really small, some are really big, and take it further and further until your teens are like, yes, I get to learn something new, or yes, this is something I didn't know before. Okay, we want your teens to love to learn because they love to learn, not because it's something that's going to benefit them, not because it's something they already care about, but because they want to learn. But they're never going to get there if we don't start with this spark of inspiration. Okay. So I know I've said I'm a study skills tutor, but for those of you who haven't met me yet, maybe you just joined us here on Facebook or on YouTube, I'm Jessyka Coulter, the CEO and founder of Ace Cookie Tutoring. I teach teens how to learn. I teach them how to love to learn through study skills, because studying is the process of learning. Okay, so your kiddos don't have study skills, especially your middle school, high school, or college kiddos that don't, they're going to struggle a lot in school, and they're not going to love learning for the sake of learning. Okay? All right. Now, I know we've talked about inspiration. I know we've talked about, okay, why we have to find this like one thing that's interesting, this one starting point. And the reasons for that are pretty simple. Okay? There's some things I know I've already said, but an idea that I hope you've considered, or maybe you had in the back of your mind as we were talking, is that this thing that's inspirational, this thing that your teen cares about, is interested in, well, that becomes a great starting point for a lot of projects, a lot of homework, a lot of essays. Okay, especially if your kiddo is told, hey, you need to write a 5-page research paper on anything you want to. Like, it could be any animal, for sticking with the horse thing. Or maybe your child is in a history class and has been so bored, so uninterested for so long, and then suddenly, like I mentioned earlier, Napoleon, and I think I totally called him the wrong thing, but Napoleon, all of a sudden there's a unit and it's going to feature Napoleon, and your child is like obsessed, okay, just like this kiddo in the homeschool group. Well, all of a sudden your teen's interested, your teen's alive, your teen is like doing the work, okay? So how do we get your teen excited up until Napoleon? How do we get your kiddo excited once the unit with Napoleon's done? Well, if your child knows how to learn about Napoleon and is able to recognize what made him so excited, well, all of a sudden we can try to make everything else tied back to Napoleon, tied back to that particular horse, or we can figure out, well, what's something Napoleon did that's connected to this thing, okay? Because even though the horse breeds are very different, they live in similar places, they eat similar things, so there's a kind of easy connection. I'm not great at history, so when I saw that example in that homeschool group, I was like, oh, it's like I would love to help this mama out and point in some directions of resources. I have a friend that's much more historically inclined, so I was able to pick his brain, but definitely do know we can go broad or narrow, but we have to start somewhere. Okay, we need your teens to get interested in one thing, so they're more likely to be interested in other things. Okay, because your teen's at the point of, I don't want to learn, I hate school, I don't want to do this assignment. That's rough on you, and it's rough on your child. Okay, so we have to find something, some hobby, something that's of interest. Okay, and then the point from that is, what can we learn about it? So it doesn't necessarily feel like learning because your teen's already interested. And how can we practice these same skills, these same thoughts, these same activities when it comes to different things? Things like we talked about, super related or not at all related, but where's that connection? Okay, I'll give you an example here of things not really related at all. I did a consultation with a mama. Her daughter loves art, does not love math. Well, there's a lot of connections between art and math. Okay, so we talked about something as simple as like shapes. We talked about like, geometry, our shapes. Talked about angles. We talked about how colors are basically numbers. And then I gave her daughter, once I got to see some of her artwork, she does some beautiful drawings of birds in colored pencil. Like, they were just absolutely stunning. And I asked her, I was like, well, what about those drawings that are made up of numbers? I don't have any idea what those are called, but I know they're a thing, and they're amazing. Those ones that they just look like paintings, pictures from afar, and then you get really close, and then you can see all the little words, all the little numbers. So we talked about, like, maybe that's your reward. Your motivation is at the end of a unit, you go through and you put all those formulas, all those practice problems, all those whatever, somehow numbers, math-related stuff, into a picture, okay? Or maybe she gets to add to it as she does her homework. It depends on the motivation level that day. So very easy to take your teen's interest in one thing and connect it to something else. So I hope this helps, mamas. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Be sure to follow the Ace Cookie Tutoring Facebook business page, because this is only tip number 1, part number 1 of inspiring your teens to love learning. So I'll be back tomorrow to talk about expectations. Do also know that Homework Buster is waiting for you on my website. So go to that link now, click on that, provide your name and email, immediately download my Homework Buster, which is 5 tips to bust your teens' homework objections. So if you've got a middle schooler, high schooler, or even college student, you want the Homework Buster. Talk to you soon, mamas. See you tomorrow.